Only a movie. Only a movie.
Have you ever had a lingering feeling that leaves you with a sense that something isn't quite right? This overwhelming sense of trepidation can stem from common household items like vintage dolls, old photos, or even a VHS or DVD. You might do your best to avert your gaze when passing by this ominous artifact, but just the presence of it in your household is enough to haunt you day and night. Whether you feel like owning these items will invite the devil to possess your soul, open a portal to hell, or even cause the police to arrest your family. I'm Alice with Dread and Terror, and these are the top 5 films that felt evil to own. Coming in at number 5 is 28 Days Later. For most of you might be thinking I chose a weak entry. But if you look at it from my perspective, 28 Days Later came out when I was around 11 years old. Add on the fact that I stumbled upon this labelless VHS in my family's movie room, and what is contained on this film sells is nothing that most of my family would purchase to own. It was so mysteriously just in my possession. Without being able to read the movie's synopsis, I put the tape into our VHS player and sat stunned at the footage. If you haven't seen this movie in a while, you may not even recall how 28 Days Later begins. Before Cillian Murphy is wandering the streets of London, the film opens with crude handheld footage of riots, hanging bodies, and raging fires. The camera pulls away to reveal a chimpanzee with medical equipment attached to its skull, forcing it to focus on the violent footage. In another room, 3 animal activists break into a testing facility and display their disgust towards how these chimps are being treated. The chimps are screaming, jumping, and pounding on steel cage and glass. A scientist walks back into the room and is caught by the activists. He informs the activists that the animals are infected with rage. They restrain the scientist who pleads for them to stop, as the virus is in the chimp's blood and saliva. As the activist free the first chimp, the chimp bellows towards her. The chimp viciously bites her neck, all while the room is flashing red warning lights and the camera movement becomes hectic. The activists beat the animal with bolt cutters, and the imprisoned chimps howl and jump around excitedly. The woman, now infected, vomits blood on the floor and on the face of another of the activists. The scientist runs over to kill the woman, and that is when we get this shot of her rage-filled eyes and a zombie-like hiss. The scene becomes eerily quiet, ending with a shot of the imprisoned chimps pounding against their cage walls while soaked in the red lighting. When the scene faded to black, I immediately ejected the movie from the VHS player. I didn't even know the horror that was the remainder of the film until years later. This opening act of animal experimentation may have been the first time in my life that I consciously considered that animals were experimented on. They weren't always our loving pets or zoo exhibits to marvel at, but there were in fact some potentially evil things in the world happening to animals all over at any given time. Rabies was already something that horrified me, and the opening of 28 Days Later was my fear turned up to 11. At number 4 is 1988's Man Behind the Sun. Man Behind the Sun is a Hong Kong exploitation horror film that depicts gruesome war atrocities performed by the Japanese Imperial Army at Unit 731 during World War II. The film starts off as an almost playful survival story of young Japanese youths, but as the story progresses, it becomes increasingly more depraved. As the Japanese youth are trained into hardened soldiers, they are taught Chinese citizens aren't people, but marut only good for experimentation and death. The film depicts Japanese soldiers smothering and suffocating an infant with snow. This is only the beginning of the torture, as the first heinous act of experimentation we see is known as Outdoor Frostbite Experimental Station. A woman who is exposed to the elements in well below freezing temperatures is tied up with her hands in front of her. A Japanese soldier continually bathes her hands and arms with icy water until completely frostbitten. The woman is brought into the station, and in front of the child soldiers, she is forced to bathe her arms in warm water. The doctor is able to pull her skin and muscle easily from the bone, like a piece of meat from a slow cooker. Later in the film, victims are injected with the Black Plague and studied. Another victim is forced into a decompression tank nude. The pressure becomes so overwhelming that his internal organs explode from his anus in a way that I simply wouldn't dare show on YouTube. His intestines unravel and pulsate. These war atrocities were all real, and in fact, Unit 731 did even more than what was depicted in the movie, sometimes not even for scientific study, but just for what they referred to as professional fun. The depictions of violence aren't the only real thing in this film. At the time of shooting, China did not have a special effects industry. Hauntingly, the footage you have just seen was made with real cadaver body parts. Understandably, the film was banned in some parts of the world or was heavily edited to have any release. Let us cleanse our palates with our third entry on the list, 2002's The Ring. In 1998, Koji Suzuki's novel, Ringu, would be adapted into a film that quickly became Japan's highest-grossing horror film in history. American production companies, empowered by the success of 1999's The Sixth Sense, were eager to produce supernatural horror mystery movies. TV sets all around America would show the cursed videotape footage without even advertising the movie until almost a month later. First edition VHS tapes included bonus cursed video footage, and a DVD feature would disable your remote, play the cursed video, and would not stop until completed or the TV was turned off. Look, it isn't really hard to imagine why The Ring felt evil to own. That is literally the premise of the film. An evil videotape curses you to die in 7 days after it is watched, and 11 or 12-year-old me could not understand why my sister would bring the certain imminent doom into our home, or why TV stations would willingly air this movie to its viewers. The Ring is definitely an iconic American horror film. Arguably, The Ring's most terrifying sequences don't even feature Samara, and I think many fans will recount the horror they felt during the ferry scene, starring a petrified horse who is disturbed by the cursed protagonist, causing it to have a violent outburst, before ultimately taking its own life in dramatic fashion. Other viewers may claim that the sight of Samara's first victim was the reason they personally couldn't sleep for 7 days, and why they cowered every time a phone rang in their presence. Our runner-up at number 2 is 1973's The Exorcist. The Exorcist still tops most lists of scariest movies ever, 50 years after its creation, and for good reason. The film is so terrifying that the very thought of having it in your home was obscene, as was the case with my mother. She vehemently refuses to even have the film in her home. It is rumored that the Christian evangelist Billy Graham claimed an actual demon was living in the celluloid reels of the film itself. Besides the iconic imagery and religious connotations, behind the scenes, rumors tell a tale of a haunted set while filming. 3 people associated with the film are reported to have died during shooting. Is this because of a long schedule and dangerous conditions of that era of filmmaking, or was the set cursed by an evil demon? Rumors of audience members running out of fainting during screenings were circulated all around the country. One confirmed instance of seemingly paranormal activity is during the Rome premiere of the film. Lightning struck a large crucifix across from the premiere, falling to the ground below. The Exorcist was so otherworldly that it is one of the only films I know of that the original teaser trailer became banned, as it was deemed too frightening. Seeing this film multiple times way too early in life and being haunted by images of Regan in jump-scare early internet videos scared me immensely. The Exorcist was the film in the horror genre that could happen in real life, and I was certain that even thinking about the evil film would cause Satan to possess either my soul or the soul of someone in my household. Only one film felt more sinister to own, and I really thought that owning this film could land me or my friends or family in prison, and that is number 1, 1980's Cannibal Holocaust. Cannibal Holocaust's reputation may have been more infamous than the film itself. There was this popular urban legend that Cannibal Holocaust was this banned snuff film. It also had this aura that it was difficult to find in stores, not that I had looked very hard myself. I had heard from friends that this film was this brutal documentary that shows its crew getting murdered and eaten alive. And, well, that's exactly what the movie is. But it is 100% fake. Cannibal Holocaust is a fictitious documentary-style horror film that depicts cannibalistic natives of the Amazon. The plot is about a team that is sent into the Amazon after a team of original filmmakers had gone missing. The realistic-looking documentary includes extremely uncomfortable scenes of sexual assault, animal cruelty, and murder. Notably, the film kills several animals, including a turtle and monkey, some of which the indigenous crew ate. Adding to the film's mythos, the deceased cast had signed contracts barring them from appearing in media, motion pictures, or commercials for up to 1 year after the film's release to help support the idea that the film was, in fact, recovered footage of murdered documentarians. This plan had worked too well, and in 1981, the director was charged with obscenity and murder. In order to prove his innocence, the director contacted 3 of his actors who appeared on a television show as evidence that they were still alive. The graphic but realistic depictions in this film are why it remains banned in as many as 50 countries to this very day. Cannibal Holocaust would even haunt the director, who has stated he wishes the film was never even made. So, what do you think? Did we miss any movies that felt evil to own? Leave your pics in the comments below. Follow Dread and Terror on Instagram, Twitter, and be sure to subscribe for more videos like the one you just watched. And remember, we love you all so much it's scary.